So, Paul, you're fresh off stage at the SportsPro Media Summit today, and obviously, when I hear the name Dolby, I actually have a bit of a flashback. So, when I was in my late teens, I was working in projection in the cinemas, and when we would have to deal with what was on screen, we'd also have to do a lot to do with the audio and sound, and we would talk about Dolby incessantly, basically, always delivering great quality sound, of course. But that was what I synonymize Dolby with. You're here talking video and what you're doing in sports. Just what is Dolby doing in this space right now?
Well, I've been in Dolby for 18 years, so I've actually been through a lot of the journey that's got us into video and actually getting us into sports now. So we got into video with a product called Dolby Vision, and essentially Dolby Vision enables the creator to have control over how video is displayed on the TV. And essentially the creator can define the colors, and because we know the capability of every TV with Dolby Vision, those colors can be mapped directly across to the TV. So you can get the experience that you want. And this also maps to sports. And Dolby Vision in sports is a really great experience because the team colors come across correctly, which the teams really love. Plus also, when you look at the faces of the players, they look natural. Whereas if you use some other technologies, they may come across very differently on every TV that you look at it, based upon what TV styles, settings you've got. So this move into video has been great, and it's very important for sports, we believe.
It's funny you talk about those sorts of things. I think everyone would take that for granted, how important some of those factors have been. When you've been talking to broadcasters, streamers, and sports, what's been their understanding of that as an important factor?
Well, so we're getting Dolby Vision in more and more sports experiences as we go forward. So it's been quite successful in that regard. But as a company, Dolby's an experience company. So we think more than just the video experience. And sports is really a great example of this because sports, it's a story as well. So it's a story of the sport, the game you're watching. But there's also a lot of context around the sport as well. So we are looking at how we can get involved in this longer term. And we're starting actually where our customers care. So with the Dolby OptiView products that we're talking a lot about here, we're looking at how we can help our customers tell the story, but also monetize. So earn revenue, which is really important these days with sports.
It sure is. It's the name of the game in the sports industry, that is for sure. So you've been on stage, just come fresh off the stage, and you're with the ATP and SC Barcelona, talking a lot about that very fact, the coexistence of content creation and monetization. Talk us through this, what were some of the conversation that you had on stage and any key learnings?
So we talked a lot about personalized ads and how important they are for sports. And the reason they're important for sports is actually people prefer an ad if it's relevant to them. And so
it's funny you say that, because that seemed revelationary for some people, and it's like,
that's right.
Absolutely, how is that not something that people are taking into account now? But it is such an important part of the piece of the puzzle.
Right. And it's more valuable to the advertisers. If they can advertise to a segment of users that they want to advertise to, it is really important. And what we talked about there, we've just done a really interesting survey with Dan Rayburn. So we surveyed a lot of sports streaming organizations.
I must say, a previous guest of the Streamtime Sports podcast.
Excellent. It was a really interesting survey because what we found was that only 10% of sports streaming services are effectively doing personalized ads through dynamic ad insertion. And we also explored the problems around it, which are related to sports itself. Sports is very different to video on demand, where personalized ads are very common. Within sports, it's a much more complex problem because you have many people needing to get served an ad at one time. And it's also, you've got to get all these ads ready to fill your inventory in a very short time, because the delay of transmission is quite low. So which is becoming more and more important in sports. So it's a much harder problem, and to get the video quality right and to get everything done in time. So it's a place for a lot of needs a lot of work to get us there at the moment.
We talked about this earlier on stage. I did a presentation and I mentioned a little bit about ads there as well. And people sometimes, I think in sports who aren't from a media background, kind of don't really get it. They don't really understand the importance of all this. But obviously, if you get it right with relevancy and you get it right with delivering those ads to people that are much better experience than the randomness that might come from the internet if you go searching online today, the value of those ads goes up so much so that there's a viability that the role of advertising can be such a viable part of monetization or that monetization mix. What did you hear from some of your panelists as well, from whether it be from ATP or FC Barcelona around that?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the different ad experiences in the panel. And the nice thing is, because we're doing over the top is becoming very common in sports, you can do different ad experiences. And because we're personalizing ads as well, you can personalize the delivery of the ad. So within the Dolby OptiView product, we're looking at a lot with double box ads, L-bar ads, and also overlay ads. And the nice thing you can do with this experience is, if you know about the what's in the content, as well as what's interesting to the viewer and interesting to the advertiser, you can optimize for that. And I really like the idea of actually having ads being played which are non-obtrusive. And you could imagine an ad being played when the goal is scored in a game, but the ad is just an overlay on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And so the viewer watching, who is really engaged in the game, sees the ad in the bottom right-hand corner, doesn't disturb from the game, but it's really valuable for advertisers that are trying to grow their brand and associate it with great moments. So I think you can use a lot of data to improve the ad experience and generate more revenue.
And this is such an important point, because for the main reasons, and one of the things we're seeing across media rights generally, is a flatlining of revenue from media rights, particularly for those sports that aren't really, let's say, ad-centric. So that's why America, you see the NFL, the NBA do so well. There's lots of stop-starts. They have abilities to serve ads in a very seamless fashion relative to the gameplay. But with football or soccer, they really have a challenge with that, because there's actually rules and regulations that stop that. However, the grey area, I believe, is around more overlay style advertising, where I think that if they can unlock that, and maybe FIFA can relax a little bit about some of those limitations, which I did think in the Club World Cup I started to see more of that come to life. Yeah. That could be a nice little boost for media rights revenues that have really struggled to keep momentum over the last few years. Would you agree with that sort of sentiment?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's I think there's a lot of space for innovation in how ads can be portrayed. And I think there's got to be work on the content licenses agreeing with those types of ads, plus also the ad industry being able to sell new types of ads. But when they get more and more personalized based upon what's in the content, what the viewer's interested in, and what the advertiser's interested in, I think it's going to happen.
So anything else you took from the panel, especially maybe from ATP side, that you thought was relevant and worth sharing?
I really like one of the comments from the ATP team. They're not very advertising centric. No. They're trying to create experiences that engage their viewers. And one of the experiences that Andrew talked about that he really likes is absolutely no commentary, just what the audio you get in the stadium streamed with the video. And that's an engaging experience to some people. But it really brings up the point that different people like to enjoy sports in different ways. And I thought that's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of, was there anything that you disagreed on? Or was it all harmonious in that basically advertising needs to be better integrated to the experience?
I don't think there was any disagreement. It was a really engaging conversation.
So talk to me. Sports is on this journey around advertising integration into sports streaming. Where do you see it being now versus, where it should be? How far does it have to go?
So I think in terms of new sports experiences, I think advertising is part of it, but monetizing experience through subscriptions is also very key. It's really important to Andrew from the ATP. And I think there's a lot of interesting work that can get done there. And what I believe, and this really riffs off what Andrew was saying, what I believe is that personalized streaming experiences are also important. So if you can personalize a sports streaming experience based upon what the viewer wants to see, I think it's a really compelling thing. And if you think about broadcast sports, you have a commentator who is there trying to engage the viewer throughout the whole game. And he'll talk about engaging things that are happening when a goal's about to be scored, but he'll also talk about player histories and talk about other games when there's lulls in the action. But this is an experience which is general for everyone. I think there's room to make experiences that are personalized to a viewer. And with all the data available now about how people are engaging with platforms and AI, I think there is a really interesting path where we can create personalized experiences for viewers. And I think that's going to increase revenue because it's going to keep people watching and they're more likely to resubscribe.
So back to OptiView for a second. Just talk a bit of nuts and bolts here. What exactly not only are you offering or doing, but who are you putting that sort of capability in the hands of? Is it the broadcasters and platforms? Is it people basically with the rights themselves who are trying to manage all that? And what is it that they're getting access to?
So we're working mostly with people, obviously they have to own the rights. And we're working with large direct-to-consumer sports organisations. That's one of our sweet spots at the moment. And the products that we have are, number one, a streaming player, a player which is trusted by a number of large streaming organisations and sports organisations. And there we solve the cross-platform problem. If you're releasing a streaming service, you've got to work across a lot of smart TVs, connected TVs, browsers and phones. So we solve that device problem. We also have a streaming product. And the streaming product, what we're aiming to do is to have low and consistently low delays. And the reason we're doing that is actually what's happening in the industry at the moment, what's happening with sports is people are actually watching together via social media. So there's a demand to get the delay low, plus also consistently low so people can watch together. And so we have customers that are trying to get to broadcast delays, but then people want to go significantly below broadcast delays, closer to live. So
people are so greedy, aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah, gosh, always wanting more. But when you're talking about that desire for like latency to be squeezed so tight, betting's always the reason that's being raised primarily. To talk about what are some of those other benefits? You talked about the watch along aspect of it.
So we have customers that are looking at betting as the reason, and they want delays in the 1 to 2 seconds. That the lower the better in many cases. For sports streaming experiences, generally our customers are wanting below 5 seconds. That's from production to viewing. Obviously, there is additional delay in the production process in many cases, and the main goal there is to keep the delay low enough so that people aren't that the experience isn't spoiled by social media. The quickest way to spoil an experience is knowing the goal's going to happen before it happens. So if we get the delays down low, people don't have to choose to turn their phones off, which is a hard choice for people to make these days.
Well, we had a study on the presentation I shared earlier. Something like 93% of people watch live sport with a phone in hand, which I think says it all, really. That you can't expect people just to be turning it off and putting it on silent in the corner and hoping that it's going to go away. Interesting. So in terms of then talking about what we just talked about then and talk about the second screen component of it, talk about, we have this conversation constantly about lean in versus lean back experiences that are being served from sports. Do you see one really standing out, or is there one basically standing out for customers and consumers that they're really interested in?
Before I answer that, I should just finish the product list of products.
Yes, go for it.
We also have an ad product. We're doing a server-guided ad insertion product, and our goal there is to address the needs of sports. And it's actually quite complex to get dynamic ad insertion, personalized ads going effectively in sports because of the delay involved. We're working on an ad insertion product specifically for sports.
Interesting. Okay, and that's to address that problem with the challenge of the DIY.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I have heard that constantly. People talking about they say you just can't do it. But you guys are going to solve that problem.
That's right. So we're kind of trying to increase that number from 10% of sports streamers using it. It's really the big guys that are doing it. We're trying to enable others to do it, like the direct-to-consumer sports organizations.
So let's talk then about the lean in versus lean back. Where do you see? Not only how do fans want to consume? Is it more one way or the other, or is it a bit of a mix?
I think people want a mix. If you look at experiences out there now, like watching NFL on Twitch versus Prime, there's lean in and lean out experiences there. I think the key here is to provide experiences that are personalized to the viewer and not expect them to lean in, provide them with basic knowledge of what they're interested in, actually feed them things, but enable them to lean in if they want to. So I think the key is personalization.
So from here, Dolby's making its moves into sports. You're innovating on the product side. What's your main goals in terms of within the sports space? Where do you kind of see where you want to get to?
What we really trying to do in sports is to enable our customers to create engaging, personalized sports experiences that they can monetize. So we're looking at what other products we can build to help them along that path.
And with the journey that sports is going through with regards to leaning into advertising more closely, it's a pretty good time to be doing it.
Yeah, it's a super interesting time.
Look, that is all we've got time for, but a big thank you, Paul, for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.